Welcome to the 11th episode of the Rain Race podcast. Today we're going to be continuing our month of May discussions related to IndyCar and the Speedway. We're going to be talking about the recent racing events from Formula One, IndyCar, and sports cars, and we're going to be making some quick predictions for next weekend's Indy 500 qualifying. I'm Chris Aurelio. This is Rain Race. Let's go. I am joined here alongside Kyle Cuthbertson.
What's up?
And Kevin Rollins.
Hi.
All right. When I said you need to get your own original intro, that's the best you could come up with, really, Kevin? Really?
Well, you see.
Sleep on it again and come back to us next week, all right?
I like my floor, okay?
Yeah, well, not many people
I made
don't
Kevin
understand
sleep
that
on the
joke.
floor.
Yeah,
his bed is so comfy. Oh my god, really is.
You haven't even experienced half of it yet.
Yeah. So we don't have a lot of news to go over this week actually, because it was very slow.
So we're going to talk about that.
News week. Yeah. I don't think so. But we're going to instead, the first thing I want to just go over here quickly, because I forgot to talk about it last week, which is my fault, was Manor LMP1 pulling out of the Spa WEC round. Now, the main reason for this was because CEFC, they're one of their big sponsors of the team, which is a Chinese energy company. They're basically in a lot of trouble right now. They're being investigated by the Chinese government. Apparently, they haven't paid employees for over 2 months. So Manor was left with no choice but to pull those cars out of the Spa race. Now, the questions still remain whether or not they'll actually be running at Le Mans. We haven't had a lot of information coming out, which is why I'm only going to spend a short amount of time on this. The only things that we do know is that Charlie Robertson and Mike Simpson, who are both drivers for the team, were at the mandatory simulator testing the day of the recording today. So I guess that's somewhat high hopes going into Le Mans. I'm not sure how you want to interpret that. Maybe they know nothing more than we do at the time, but overall, Manor's going to have to find a new sponsor if they want to have any prayer of competing in LMP1 this year.
Oh, well, I do have a theory that maybe instead of spending the money that they have all right, so every team has some money that they have without a sponsor, which explains why Buddy Lazier was able to run the past 2 Indy 500s. So maybe they're trying to save the money that they have and have an attack at Le Mans instead of Spa. I mean, it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, it was all a last second pull out of the event because they but they ran laps in.
Well, they won a install lap per car.
Yeah, they ran one
free practice.
Yeah, and I think they actually went out for one install lap in qualifying as well. But throughout the entire weekend, nothing was really known until they eventually came out with the release on Saturday. Or no, it was Friday, actually. Yeah, it was a day of qualifying when they said they wouldn't be competing that weekend. So that was a whole last-second thing. But they do have another month or so to get prepared for Le Mans. Hopefully we see them turn up at the Le Mans test day, because actually that's mandatory for all Le Mans teams. So they're going to have to really get their act together before then. Hopefully they can get that all sorted out. Anyway, the next thing I want to go over is the Indy 500 starting grid, because that's now out and it's finalized. Well, all barring one car, which we're still not completely sure about, the 19 Dale Coyne car.
Well, it's still entered, but there's no driver.
Yeah, that's why but I mean, every other piece of information is pretty much confirmed. So, Kyle, why don't you lead us off here and just sort of talk about the highlights from this year's starting grid?
Well, the only notables really is that we don't know who's in the 19 car. Actually, okay, funny enough, on the entry list it still says Pietro Fittipaldi, and not funny enough, but just kind of ironic. I think we're probably going to either see DeMello or Saavedra. I'm kind of leaning towards Saavedra since we literally have practice tomorrow, and there's no driver for the 19, which funny, sad, weird, I don't know. And then of course, the other car that we kind of forget about, the James Davis and Bellardi. I'm gonna call it a Bellardi entry this month. You might get confused, a Foyt entry. I'm gonna call it a Bellardi entry because from what I've heard,
You're
that is
trying to imitate
basically,
David.
yeah, it is really more of a Bellardi entry than a Foyt. Count how many times I say here, trying to. Dale Jr.'s back in the field with Gavin Chavez because they're still using that font. Steph Wilson unveiled his livery today, and it's got like the silver on it, and it's cool. Charlie Kimball has the Fias livery with the yellow and blue that he ran in the GP. And then that no really notable changes. You know, J.R. Hildebrand and Sage Karam are coming in for Reinbold. We got the Danica Patrick car, and if number 13 cars never won the 500, and green cars don't really do good at the 500. Let's see how she does.
If I pull up my Larry Mack race trends, if you look at the July race, you'll see.
There you go. There you go. So that's about all we got.
That's pretty much what you're doing here.
Actually, I do have a piece of news. It's not major, but I mean, nonetheless, it's news that we kind of overlooked. That they got rid of the LED panel for the month.
Yeah, that I actually was reading on that the other day. That was because there was a software issue with
they were
something
catching
related
on fire.
Yeah, so I thought it was a software issue with IMS.
And they were catching on fire.
Yeah. Well,
there was a software issue. They were messing up, and they like literally caught on fire.
Yeah, so those were absent from the cars in the GP.
I mean, I knew those LED panels were fire, but I didn't think they were literally fire.
All
Too
right.
cringy.
That's strike one, and 3 strikes you're off this podcast for terrible, shitty puns. Yeah, I mean, I think we've covered everything.
Here's my question though on the LED panel. Why could they have not gone back to the old one?
I don't know. They probably threw them all in the trash by now. Honestly, I don't know.
They're probably like, yeah, let's just throw these things away. We don't care. Let's go to the next.
Well, I was going to say, I think we've covered everything else on the entry
list.
35 confirmed, unless.
Oh yeah.
Unless out of nowhere the 19
There's
car
no
is pulled out. But
no, they're not going to pull out the 19 car. You know why?
Why is that?
Do you know why? Because they
don't.
have to run every race of the season to be a part of the Leader Circle program, so they need to keep that entry on track.
That's right. The last thing I want to go over here isn't really news, it's more speculation, but it's the month of May's theme, so you know what? I'm going to go over it anyways. Adam Stern on Twitter from the Sports Business Journal is saying that McLaren is exploring a possible full-time entry into IndyCar in 2019. He cites some sources saying that it could be a joint entry with either Andretti or Rahal Letterman Lanigan. So they said that the McLaren staff has been in Indy developing an effort, so I guess they're at the Speedway this month trying to get some more information, and McLaren and Rahal Letterman representatives have declined to comment. However, Andretti Autosport did say, and these are on quotes here again, thank you, Adam Stern, for getting all this. He said, we think McLaren would be a valuable addition to the IndyCar paddock. Our partnership for the 2017 Indy 500 proved to be successful, and we would welcome them, and we would welcome the opportunity to work with them again. As for McLaren's 2019 plans, that is a question best directed to McLaren. And obviously McLaren, like we said, declined to comment. So that's quite interesting. We saw some people saying that could happen in the 2018 season. Never ended up happening. However, would you two have anything to say regarding McLaren possibly entering a joint team deal in IndyCar next year?
I could see it. Now, the reason I say that, they had the very rough relationship with Honda, and they actually were successful at Indy last year. And they've had a typical midfield car season in F1, which is still disappointing for McLaren considering what caliber of a team they were a decade ago. So maybe they're getting sick of being a midfield team, and maybe they want to partner with a proper team and run a full season and be competitive across 17, 18 races.
Obviously, though, at the time, we don't know anything for next year, but Ray Hall, Letterman, and Andretti are both Honda teams at the moment, so it'd kind of be like McLaren going back to Honda. And I don't know if there's anything else to say on
I
that
guarantee
topic.
you that if they do it, they will not call their team McLaren Honda again.
Oh, I
They're
know.
going to leave Honda out of the team name.
Yeah. And I mean,
Because
it's
I can
not
definitely
even.
see what I can definitely see what Kevin's saying. Though I feel like not Honda, McLaren as a brand. I feel like they, if they're not winning, they're not happy. I feel like where they are in F1, they're not where they want to be, and I feel like they see an IndyCar where they could be at a winning opportunity with either Ray Hall or Andretti. Going back to Honda would be weird, but I feel like they would embrace it if there was a chance for them to be at the front in a top tier racing series.
Yeah, and it's not even worth speculating possible drivers at the time. So,
Fernando.
yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna say no to that one right now. But
I mean,
Jensen Button.
they have Lando Norris coming up, so either I'd say Norris would come over to IndyCar, or they'd take Stoffel and send him to IndyCar and put Norris in the F1 car.
Paul DiResta.
I could see it, I guess.
Because remember, he did race with United Autosports at the Rolex. And
I still think Lando Norris or Stoffel Van Dorn.
Oh no, Lando Norris is going to be the next Fernando Alonso in that. Well, he's going to replace Fernando. That is.
Well, I feel like Lando, if they don't, they could either take Stoffel and put him to IndyCar, or they could take Lando and take him to IndyCar. Because right now in F1, where you get development drivers, you get to the point where you have a veteran and a younger driver on the team, like Fernando and Stoffel. And then you got guys like Lando Norris in their development program that get up to a point where they need to move to F1, but they have nowhere to go. And so I feel like if an F1 team were to take on an IndyCar program, that'd probably be the next step below F1. Now, I don't particularly want to say IndyCar would be like a feeder to F1, which it wouldn't. But, I mean, for a driver to go over and get top-tier experience in a open-wheel car at that level of speed, and you basically need the same values as a driver as you do in F1 and IndyCar. It's almost a parallel universe. So I feel like if you could take one of your development drivers and put them over there, it definitely helped them out a lot.
Yeah, but here's my point of view on Lando Norris. I think he's on the direct track to Formula One. There is no way that he's going to end up in IndyCar, because I've actually been paying attention to Formula 2, and he's been very competitive in Formula 2. And I honestly
Yes, but where's he going to go? If he comes up to a point, is he just going to replace Stoffel or replace Fernando? But where's Fernando going to go, and when is Fernando going to leave? I feel like Fernando's not at a retiring point at this point. He's kind of like Scott
Fernando's
Dixon. He still has a great.
He's going to go somewhere else, because he's said that he wants to win this year, and he's only on board for a 1-year contract with McLaren currently. And if he does not get that win this year,
yeah, but then where's he going to go next year?
McLaren.
Ferrari has their development drivers, and if Kimi leaves, then
they will have the All-Star lineup for sure.
And then,
they have Fernando, but
because if Fernando's going to go anywhere else in F1, if Fernando's going anywhere else in F1, it's got to be a top team, because he's not going to go to another midfield team.
Okay,
but where's he going to go in a top team?
Kyle,
Mercedes already has a big development group.
Shut up.
Quick post-episode side note here. These are the two guys that criticize me for editing this podcast, and this is the exact reason why I do.
Ferrari has their development group.
Just listen to this. If he wins Le Mans, and if WEC plays their cards right, like they did at Spa, he will. Then he'd have 2 to 3 jewels for the Triple Crown. That leaves the Indy 500. So if he wins Le Mans, it's almost guaranteed that Fernando's going to go to IndyCar.
Well, there's the Indy 500 and then there's IndyCar. You never know.
Yes, but he embraced IndyCar to a point last year where I would not be surprised to see him do a full season of IndyCar.
No, I wouldn't be surprised, but I think for anything with Fernando, I feel like he wants to go do IndyCar and he wants to go through a full season, but I feel like his heart is still with F1. He still wants more to accomplish in F1. He still wants another championship. He wants more race wins. He wants to leave F1 feeling like he had a very successful career. Not the first few years with Renault being very successful and then just being bad luck Fernando. I think he wants to leave F1 on top and being successful.
But there's a point where he's going to get frustrated enough to where he doesn't want to continue that career because it will go nowhere. Well,
or then at that point he goes to F1 or he just flat out retires. I think he
He's
does need to
already
have
in
success.
F1. How could he go to F1 when he's already there?
Well, if he continued in F1, either he continues in F1 or he flat out retires if he doesn't have success in F1. I don't think he goes to IndyCar without having another championship.
Because of Formula 1.
I don't think he. Here's what I'm saying though.
Successful elsewhere.
But here's what I'm saying though. I don't see him leaving F1.
Are going to be the same. They're not.
I don't see him ever leaving F1 without winning another championship and winning more races. I don't ever see that.
But if you have guys like Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel, there's no way in hell that Fernando will be at their level with that kind of equipment. Now, unless he gets a Ferrari or Mercedes seat, and remember, Valtteri Bottas is in for 1 year contract, and Kenny's on the last year of his contract. And Fernando.
Yes, but look at the development programs. Look at the development programs that Mercedes and Ferrari has. If they put Fernando in a car, they're going to have to give Fernando more money. And why would you give Fernando more money when you could just put a development driver in the car for cheap?
All right, boys, this is not...
It's sort of like what we have in NASCAR right now.
You already have your Hamilton, your Vettel in your car. Why would you need another All-Star in your car?
You would have another established driver, not some random-ass kid like George Russell.
Yeah, but you think F1 cares about that? They care about what money they're spending.
This isn't a presidential debate here. Can we just, relax?
I'm just saying, there's no way in hell that Fernando's going to pass up the opportunity to compete in IndyCar if he wins Le Mans.
Well, I see both sides, but quite frankly, I just find it funny that I said we're not going to bother speculating, and then you guys just spent a solid 6 minutes speculating on things that don't even really relate to IndyCar at that point. Well, I kind of do.
They do, because Fernando will end up in IndyCar at some point.
That's a pretty broad...
Kyle's point of view is that if he doesn't do well in Formula 1, he's just going to retire. There's no way that's happening.
I feel like that could happen.
It won't happen because he's proven that he can still compete in other series. Now, albeit you can't really count WEC as being competitive when it's handed to him on a fucking golden platter, but he did very well in IndyCar last year, and nothing was
in the Indy 500.
He did that
IndyCar.
on his own.
Same thing, but Indy 500.
Now, he did have really good technology with Andretti, but most of that was Fernando being Fernando and being damn good at it.
I'm going to save the rest of this for another day. I think that's fair enough, correct? Because I want to move on to our next segment in case you missed it.
This is our next segment in case you missed it, where we're changing it up. Christopher says everything on the little docs in 2 minutes. Are you ready, Chris?
Well, I just want to explain for those who, this may be their first episode. This is small news that we wouldn't normally go over. And yeah, normally Kyle does this stuff, but I
wanted to make
it up today.
It was my first time introducing the segment. I wanted to make it intense. Okay.
All right, that works.
You got 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
All right, Williams put in a request to review their Baku penalties, and F1 ended up denying those requests. Pietro Fittipaldi was talking about a test for Haas F1 before his crash at Spa in the LMP1 Dragon Speed car. Lilly Diabetes will be sponsoring Connor Daly at the Indianapolis 500 again. IndyCar will go the month of May without LED panels. We talked about that earlier, but again, this planning is not very well put out. Antonio Silas Jr., I'm assuming that's how it's pronounced, correct me if I'm wrong, will make his IndyCar debut at Road America for Juncos. Penske won its 200th IndyCar race on Saturday. Props to Will Power. We'll talk about that in a few minutes here. Ferrari was told to remove their little halo winglets that we saw in the car in Spain before Monaco. Porsche revealed their new Porsche 911 GT3R, the new GT3 Challenger. K-Tech has taken over the LMP3 North American engine support. Jackie Ickx was named the Grand Marshal for this year's 24
Jackie
hours.
Ickx.
What do you? Yeah,
it's Jackie Ickx.
I've heard Jackie Ickx was named the Grand Marshal for this year's 24 Hours of Le Mans. Jenson Button completed his first LMP1 test with SMP. Thomas Dagenau has completed completes the gentleman driver lineup at La Brea. You screwed me up there. Eric Maris has completed EBI Motors lineup alongside Christina Nielsen and Fabio Balbini. Actor Chris Hemsworth will be flying the flag at the Indianapolis 500, and tennis star Rafael Nadal will wave the tricolor at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Bam. Did I do it?
Jesus, you had 1 second to
Let's
spare.
freaking go. All right. That's a record.
Dude, see, look, well, hold on. That wasn't even like I've had in case you missed it was more than that.
Yeah,
Man,
I know, but you know
Chris.
what?
This is why I do this, guys.
It is. And that's why that's the only time you'll ever see me doing that. Anyway, moving on to the recaps. This is going to be a little bit of an issue here because you two were at the GP of Indy.
We were literally at the race.
Yes.
And Chris didn't watch a single bit of it.
I was at work, so I couldn't watch it. Meanwhile, I watched the 24 Hours of Nürburgring on my free time, and you didn't watch that much of it. So here's the way we're going to handle this.
And then none of us watched Spain. I just want to point that
that's
out,
a problem, but we'll pretend like we know what's going on with that. So you guys can take the hands for IndyCar.
Here, I'll go over the whole gist of it. So there was a wreck in turn 1 where I think it was Elio got into... No, wait. Sato hit Elio, and then Elio hit Pagano, which Pagano hit King, and King went flying off, and Pagano spun. And that caused a yellow, and Air Piggott happened in the chicanes. He got a good, 5 feet up the air. Probably more than that, honestly. And then he came in, hit Sato, get a good old J-turn, and got it going. That was actually impressive. And then throughout the race, Firestone did a tremendous job with the tires. The difference between the reds and the blacks was very apparent. First stint happens, and Robert Wickens is breathing down the neck. Robert Wickens, he was breathing right down the neck of Will Power, and the pit stops happened. I think Power went to blacks the first chance he got, and then Wickens he started on reds, and then he went right back to the reds. So Wickens on reds versus Power on blacks. Wickens gets by Power, and then the stint after that, Wickens goes on blacks, and then Power goes to reds. I think Wickens worked like a 15-second gap onto Power, which then Power on the reds, Wickens on the blacks. Power brought that right back. We had a great battle and a great pass in the turn 1 that Kevin and I and David Land, we all got to see firsthand. We were screaming and yelling. It was a good time.
Oh, yeah.
And then the final stint. Well, hold on. We can't even get to the final stint yet because once Power got by Wickens, Joseph Newgarden, that was terrible. But he tried to send it into, I don't even remember what corner that is. I think it's like 10 or 12. But anyways, he tried to send it on, I forget who it was he was sending on. I think it was Rossi. He tried to go inside, clipped the curb, spun out, and stalled the car. He had a bad finish. He had a positive day in the top 5, but he had a terrible finish. But that happened with about 30 laps to go, and you can about go 25, 26 laps on fuel. So basically everyone had to pit, and the last 25, 30 laps was just, single file running, everybody trying to save fuel. No one could really run hard and pass anybody. So that really made the last 20, 30 laps of the race a bit poor. But then again, we did have an awesome race between Wickens and Power, and it was probably, out of Power's 3 wins in the GP, it was probably the hardest that he's had to earn. It was a great race. And I think I really did get all the things I want to talk about. We did see the Chevys actually do as good as the Hondas on fuel mileage, if not better. It's always been a talk that Honda makes better fuel mileage. So the Chevys, they actually hung with the Hondas because at the end of the race, Scott Dixon got around Robert Wickens, and he was breathing down Power's neck, but he couldn't make it happen even on fuel.
Okay, so I kind of want to explain what happened to Wickens there. I watched back the race this morning.
That was the very first time he ever had to fuel save, period.
Well, no, Wickens wasn't because of the fuel saving. Actually, it's because he could not use the push to pass on the straightaways because even without the push to pass, he was hitting the rev limiter. So he was down on Power on the straightaways. The only time he could effectively use the push to pass.
So that's why David and I thought that Power was definitely better on the straights.
Yeah, because
that's probably how in that turn 1 pass. That's probably why Power basically had him cleared by turn 1.
Yeah. And also we had to bring up that Ryan Hunter-Reay was down a cylinder the entire race.
That too. Andretti had a bad day. Marco Andretti blew up in practice. They had in warm up
Well,
actually.
warm up.
They had to. It's basically practice, but they had to put in a new engine before the race, and he was in the back. Zach Veach, I guess, wasn't saving enough fuel, and they basically just brought him in with 15 to go. So he went from having a solid outside the top 10 finish to a 18th finish. Hunter Raiders down the center. So basically, the only guy that did well in the Andretti clan was Rossi.
As usual.
And then also the thing with Wickens in the end, he said in the interview that was the first time he's ever had to fuel save at the end of a race. So he was obviously trying to say what he did. He said he was surprised that they even finished the race. Because the number they gave him, he said there was no freaking way. And even halfway through the stint, they told him, that's not the number we need. That's not good enough. And he said he was surprised that they actually finished the race. Here's how close they were on fuel. Graham Rahal, who was I wish someone else would say this, but because I sound biased when I do, but I think Graham Rahal he passed. I think he probably passed the second most people next to Dixon. He passed so many cars under green flag, and he came away leading laps and finished ninth. And he would have finished eighth, but they ran out of fuel right before the line, and Pagano beat him. And that's what I said. I sound biased if I said that, but even the announcers at IMS were pointing it out. He went from 16th to 7th in the first stint. And if he wouldn't have been on blacks in the second to last stint and lost a bunch of time, he would have been a podium contender to top 5. But anyways, here's how close they were on fuel. Graham Rahal, Hinchcliffe, and Jordan King didn't even make it to the cooldown lap. They passed start finish line and parked the cars at the end of the pit lane because they just ran out of fuel. So that's how close it was on fuel. The other thing that I kind of want to ask you guys and talk about is the Indy GP. We've had this is the 5th year, I believe, and we've had the same 2 winners every year. There's been a lot of talk, but this year we obviously saw a big improvement in the racing and a big improvement in the show. And I think watching back the race today on TV, I think it was very apparent that the GP is a racy track and that we can get good racing. I just wanted to hear you guys' thoughts. Probably not Chris as much, but...
Well, no, actually, I do have interesting things to say here because I know that a lot of the critics of the GP of Indy would rather just have
David
them
Lamb.
running. Yeah, and I've seen other people on forums as well would like them to just be practicing on the oval that month. Now, I think what it comes down to, and I saw people saying this on forums as well, that it's not the quote-unquote good old days anymore. Racing is an expensive sport. It always has been. I think particularly now, though, with the new safety initiatives and just the way everything is operated nowadays, teams can't afford to be blowing up engines on the speedway all month long. So you can't have them out there for a month doing practicing. They're dialing it back to around a week now pretty much. So I think that the GP does a good job at filling that void and sort of hyping everyone up for the events on the actual oval itself. I wouldn't say that the racing has been particularly amazing. I just think that the track layout itself isn't designed for that. It's pretty much just a flat oval, not a flat oval, but a flat circuit. So I think that it does a decent job within its realm of putting on a good show. But I think overall that race is meant more for hype than just good racing action. Because I've never seen anything over the past 5 races there that's really excited me that much. But like I said, I think that its main purpose is to hype up people for the events on the speedway.
Another thing too that is the race, it doesn't bring in a terrible crowd. Like it brings in a decent crowd. The reason you don't see as many people in the stands is the first year. Actually, David and I were talking about this. The first year, how the grandstands and everything was packed to the brim, and then we kind of think that everybody watched it from the stands and then realized how better it was. Just because most of these people that came out to Indianapolis for the GP, they never saw a road course race. So I think a lot of people that were in the stands the first year kind of realized that if you walk around the track and stuff and see the other corners of the track and not just sit in the stands, you'll get a better view, better vantage points. But even though it doesn't look like the grandstands are full, mainly because they close off a lot of them on the front straight, they do bring in a decent, good crowd, and it's really a lot of IndyCar diehards there that you see everywhere, and it's not a bad thing to have. I think it's a success. I think the GP is a success, and others will say I'm wrong, but I think it is a success.
We need to add stages to make the racing better.
Oh yeah, and
Don't
then
even
I'd
get
only
me started, Kevin. Do not
And
even
I'd
joke
be-
about that.
another thing. I'd
I'm
be
about
on
to start
board.
a war.
I'd be on board with a September GP of Indianapolis if you have IMSA doubleheader with them. That's when I'd be okay with it. But I don't know. I think a random September IndyCar race at the GP wouldn't work.
Have there even been like talks about that though? Moving it to a different time of year?
There's been playful thoughts about it. Nothing
Because I
serious,
think
really.
the month of May makes the most sense to me because
Well, you got the purists who are like, oh, they shouldn't be racing on a road course in the month of May. That's made for the Indy 500.
yeah, but
Robin Miller.
like I said multiple times now, the whole purpose of that race in my eyes is to serve as a hype up. And if you have it running in like July or if you have it running in September, I don't really
July.
see what good purpose that race is going to serve other than for the not few diehard, but you know what I mean, the group of diehard IndyCar fans.
The other thing I do like about that race too is it is cheap. It's a good
Yeah.
$25 ticket to get in. It's a good race. I think that's probably why
Unless
they
you're
gained
like
enough
Kyle.
fans because you get a $25 ticket.
Unless you're like Kyle, who's 15, who gets in for free.
Oh yeah, I got in free because I'm quote unquote 15. So
Still playing that card, huh?
gotcha. If I'm anyone that works at IMS or your yellow shirt, gotcha.
It ain't gonna work. Well, luckily they don't know what you look like, so
They don't know what I look like. Go follow
This is
Rail
when I-
Fanatic.
if you
This is
look
when
at the
Chris says,
YouTubes-
go follow Rail Fanatic 15 on YouTube.
If you go look at the YouTube version of this right now, I have a picture of Kyle up full screen right now so you can see him.
Ooh.
Multiple
No,
pictures.
it's the Meyer pick too, I bet.
Oh, the Andretti fire suit?
ah,
It's the
Oh,
picture
no.
from Meyer too. Oh no.
that was a fun day.
I've seen better things in my life, I'll tell you that much. But I just want to get this over with because, as we've already established, I don't think any of us have watched this one, but F1 at Spain, there was some hype up because McLaren had a completely new car.
Yeah, it
Everyone
was weird.
Hyping that up. It was a 2018 variant. Apparently, the first few races of 2018, they were running a modified 2017 car, and everyone got really hyped up about that, but it didn't really seem to do that much for them. They just seem to be pretty much on the same pace set that they were for the rest of the races so far. Lap 1, there was an incident. Romain Grosjean, Pierre Gasly got involved. Who else? It was
Grosjean be Grosjean.
Yeah, I mean, Grosjean just had a terrible weekend overall. He had incidents in practice, started near the back, and just, I think it was turn 3 on lap 1, just pretty much spun out, and that was his race done. It was the second race in a row he's retired, but at a point.
You forgot to mention too, there were even incidents in practice and qualifying. You had Hartley hit the wall, which now I heard that they're pretty much on the brim for needing a new engine already because of that. And engine, you're going to say power plant. And then there
power
was
unit.
I think it was either Stroll or Strachan that hit the wall in qualifying in the Williams.
I believe it was Sorokin, but don't quote me on that.
Striking.
Yeah,
Striking.
and Lewis Hamilton, you can't really discredit him. He had a lot of pace that whole weekend, and I guess a lot of people could say Baku, Hamilton kind of stole that one from Bottas at the end, but at Catalunya, he just really had the pace from the beginning and pretty much just dominated that whole race. So does it look like we have the traditional hybrid era Lewis Hamilton back already? I mean, I know that there were a lot of people at the beginning of 2018 who said, all right, this is it. It's Ferrari's year, as they've been saying since 2015 or whatever. But Lewis
They've been
Hamilton,
saying that
See
every
another-
year since they last
will we
won as
see?
constructors.
Will we see another 2017 choke?
I'm not sure. Lewis Hamilton, though, extended his points lead over Sebastian Vettel. Next race, of course, is Monaco in 2 weeks' time.
Oh boy.
And the last thing I want to go over here was the 24 Hours of Nürburgring, because that's the race I paid the most attention to. over the weekend. It had pretty much everything you'd expect from a Nürburgring race. It had drama. It had rain. Um,
Slow Audis.
It had a red flag for
excuse
fog.
me. Should I put up the winning list from the past
I
few
thought.
years so you can see how many
Well,
Audis won?
I thought.
Um,
Well, I said that because I thought this year Audi was like 4 seconds off pace or
well,
something
they
after the.
were. They were
Yeah.
really the furthest up in Audi qualified for the race was 15th, which was the number one Land Motorsport Audi, and then right
Beautiful.
before the race they get a 10 kilogram BOP weight break, which I haven't seen any BOP updates after qualifying since Le Mans 2015. I think was the last time I saw it. No, it would be 2016. My bad, with GTE Pro.
That was still a joke.
Yeah. Oh man, we can't talk about that right now though. Anyway, the race, it looked like
Because Ford cheated.
again, can't talk about that right now. The race, it looked like Mercedes and Porsche. I don't know what happened to my voice there. Pretty much had the pace set from the beginning. Road racing, BMWs faced some reliability issues throughout the race. I believe it was the 98 car having issues very early on. The number 8 Audi, WRT Audi, clipped. It was a very odd incident because there was a slow car on his left that it crested a hill and just kind of came up on him at the very last second. He had another car that he was passing on the right, and he kind of just got boxed in, drove through the middle at an extremely high rate of speed. It was the final straightaway of the circuit, one of the fastest, if not the fastest part on the track. And I'm not sure if a tire went down. They said it might have been a suspension, but he spun out in the braking zone, slammed the wall, and that was day done for them. And then I kind of went to sleep soon after that. Well, I had work, went to sleep soon after that. I'm just going off what I saw here, obviously. The number 1 Audi spun out in the rain because they were on intermediate tires and spent the next 30 minutes in the garage repairing all of that. Actually, the rain came a lot earlier than we were expecting, though, because I was looking at the forecast from the beginning, and they were predicting rain towards the end, but it actually came pretty much during the end of the nighttime hours of that race. Early morning, we saw the rain start to crawl in there and cause a lot of drama. In the end, there was a pretty good battle between the number 4 Mercedes, Black Falcon Mercedes, and the 912 Manti Porsche. Actually, I forgot to mention this. The 911 Manti Porsche dominated that race all race long until I believe it was Kevin Estre was driving at the time, spun out, and that was day done for that car as well. So it came down to the 912 and the number 4 at the finish. And it was actually looking like the Black Falcon Mercedes could pull off an unlikely win on fuel mileage, but they ended up having to pit. So that was a little bit of a disappointment, and the 912 Porsche won by a sizable margin in the end. But overall, we did see that action in the final hour. They were neck and neck going into the final hour of the race, which was really cool to see. But I wouldn't say it was the most exciting Nürburgring 24-hour finish I've seen. I'd say that award would go to 2016 when you had the 2 Mercedes battling on the last lap. But yeah, that's enough of me talking.
See,
Kyle
told you, Kyle.
or Kevin,
I liked last year's better. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
would you like to elaborate?
Rain on half the track, dry on the other. Tire strategies. Yeah, great.
Well, see, as an Audi fan, I like last year's more as well, but that's taking bias into this whole thing. Kevin, do you
I
have
will take
anything
bias.
you'd like to say about the Nürburgring 24 Hours this year?
I mean, it really did come down to 2 manufacturers being Porsche and Mercedes, and the Nürburgring has this really weird, not equation, but theme to it where the strong manufacturers one year are weak the next year, and that seems to be very, very evident in the recent days. I mean, the R8 was very strong in 15 when it debuted. Then it was really sucky in 2016. So next year, I think it's definitely going to be BMW or Audi up there.
Anyway, I didn't say any plans for this before, but I'm gonna put you guys on the spot. This is gonna be very simple because Indy 500 qualifying is next weekend. Just pick who you think will get the pole. Just one driver. That's all I need
No,
to
no,
hear.
no, 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 no. I have a better way to do this.
Really?
Pick who's gonna get the pole and pick who the 3 drivers getting bumped.
Oh,
2 drivers.
that's that. All right. Yeah, it would be 2 drivers.
Oh yeah, it would.
Um.
Well, yes.
All right. Well, that was. I'm gonna say that was your idea now. So you're up first.
Yeah, because that's a good one. The pole goes to boarded
Here started the count.
Are you having a seizure?
Ross, no.
He's got rabies.
No, man, no, definitely not. That was a joke. That was a joke.
Well,
Say
that
the
counts.
man. No, that was a joke. Let's just pick the 5 names I'm thinking of.
It's just
into
a
hat.
crapshoot,
Pull
so just
one
name
out.
one.
Sebastian Bourdais wins the pole. Well, I mean, Hinchcliffe won it in 2016. You see where I'm going. 2 drivers getting bumped. Kevin's going to pick Pippa Man. I think Pippa Man's going to make it. I want to say Daly's going to get bumped, but I like Daly, so I'm going to play bias. Let's just say, I'm going to say Matthias Leist doesn't make it. I say he wrecks. And then he doesn't make last chance qualifying because AJ Foyt can get the car together. I say Matthias Leist doesn't make it. Why am I saying that? Because I'm feeling ballsy and I want to say something that could happen that if might probably not. And then let's think of the random drivers in the field.
There should be a time limit here.
Yeah.
There should.
Take all day, Junior.
Because
Junior.
Speaking of Junior, I'm going to take this as a quick opportunity while Kyle thinks to. You can go check out Kevin's podcast, the Dale Cast.
Dale
That is
Cast.
Dale, Dael. I'll link it on the card at the top right if you're watching on YouTube. Anyway,
And even
Kyle,
funnier is
have you thought of one other driver yet?
Whoever's in the 19 car.
Okay, that works. That
All
works for me. Personally, I'm going to say Alexander Rossi for pole because he's kind of on fire this year. It's Andretti. Andretti's seemingly always quick at IMS with a couple of exceptions, notably 2011.
Cool.
All right, who I think is going to get bumped? I'm going to say Kyle Kaiser. I'm going to say goodbye to him.
Oh.
And I'm going to say... This is tricky,
I don't know. I
actually.
kind of liked Kaiser's speed during the testing. We'll see during practice.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to say him. I'm also going to say... I'm not going to say Pippa Man either, because she's
that's too
Dale
easy.
Coyne. If they can set it... Well, I don't know. I mean, she's also Dale Coyne. If they can set her car up like they could...
She's
Two
been
cars last
usually
year.
around row 8, row 9, which is why I'm not going to say
Yeah.
her. I'm saying row 8, row 9
I'm
because
trying to think of like somebody who'd crash, like you said. But in the end, I'm going to say... I don't know why I'm saying this, but I'm going to say Gabby Chavez.
Whoa.
Wow.
Okay. I'm on board with that.
Maybe, yeah, Kevin would be kind of cheering for that one, but that's sort of a whole construction industry thing, with Harding. But
Kind of. I said Mateus Life, so I still think I have the most unrealistic one. But Gabby Chavez is definitely like in there. He's
Yeah.
up there, I think.
anyway, speaking
Okay.
of Kevin, there's your
Whoa.
leeway for this episode. Kevin,
Yeah.
you're up.
I guess Kevin in the bumping. I think we both of us have ballsy bumps. So let's see how you go.
Okay, so for who's going to get bumped, I have 3 actually. First off is Buddy Lazier, so I know I can't pick on that one because he's not even entered. I'm not going to say Pippa Man, believe it or not. The first
Good.
one I'd say is going to be Connor Daly. The reason I say that is that he is using the 19 car from the Grand Prix, and that car
Yeah, but what
was
does that mean though? Like what?
You're comparing a road course setup to an oval setup, bud.
But that
Yeah.
car was still pretty garbage, nonetheless.
Yeah, but
So-
I don't think the chassis really makes a
And
difference.
plus,
They're all
Connor
the
Daly has
same.
not had any time with this new car at all.
Yeah, but all the chassis are the same. Yeah, but there's so many drivers in the field that I'm not
And
even
the
question. There's
other
so many.
one,
There's a
I'm
lot
gonna
of
go out-
drivers in the field that haven't had experience in the car, and the chassis they're all the same. So I don't really think of one's
And the
different
other
than the
one I'm going to say is James Davidson.
Yeah, I'm questioning you a lot.
Okay, the reason I say Davidson is because David had a point when we was discussing it the other night. He has the car that Beach had, that had the hole in the tub,
Quite true.
and that is notoriously garbage.
Quite true.
So, if I don't think Davidson can do that much, and I'm not questioning Davidson as a driver because he's damn good as a driver. We know that, but it's the team and it's the chassis that he has that is really questionable.
I feel like using the 19 road course chassis isn't that. I don't think that hurts him a whole lot.
It's also Connor Daly. Something always happens to him. Just keep that in mind.
All right, Kevin.
He qualified
pole,
on row
though.
8 in 2016.
The pole?
And
Okay. I'm going to say, and I hate to sound like a bandwagon here, Robert Wickens.
Oh. Because I was thinking about that as well, but...
I don't think. Well, the thing is, I'm questioning Schmidt-Peterson's oval right now.
Well, here's the thing, though. We haven't seen these cars in we haven't seen them trimmed out at all on a super speedway.
Quite true.
They've
We
only
haven't
been on the
seen
super
them
speedway for a couple of days.
with fully conservative aero and low boost.
But also think about this, though. First time where they're actually properly running on a super speedway with this car, with everybody, there's a lot of unknowns to it. It's not like we can pick out a hat at all.
Random question at the end here because she's kind of the hype. Where does Danica qualify?
I'd say
mid-pack.
I would say she will be about 11th or 12th.
You got to look at ECR's oval program, and she's got Ed Carpenter, probably one of the best at the speedway in qualifying. But still,
I very briefly thought about her top 3 for qualifying, but I don't really see that happening.
Do you see her making the top Fast 9 for Sunday?
I could see Danica getting a top 9 if Ed Carpenter gets their oval setup correct this year. I think Ed Carpenter is definitely their best driver at that track, and we've seen that if he gets a good car, he can qualify on the front row. So I think, Fast 9 could be an easy possibility. It just comes down to how daring she's going to be as well, because these cars won't be I don't think easy is a good word to use, but I was going to say as easy through the turns as they were in the Aero Kit era. So it's going to come down to how comfortable she is as well.
Using easy is for a lack of a better term.
Yeah, for lack of a better word. Like I said as well, it comes down to how well Ed Carpenter can set the car up. So it is officially the practice week right now.
Cue the Delta Force.
Tuesday, which is tomorrow, the time this is going up, we'll have the first 10-minute practice special. Now, I've looked at the forecast, and they're predicting a lot of rain this week, so that'll be quite interesting, both for us as people who are committed to doing these short 10-minute segments, and Kevin, who's planning on being at the track.
That's okay. Our nice media lady from IndyCar, Katie, gave us IndyCar ponchos, so we'll be good this week.
Outside of that, though, I'm going to have the channel for these two on the card in the top right if you're on YouTube. Not too much to go over, though. Thank you all for listening to this episode. See you quite a few times this week, and hope you enjoyed this episode.